Thank you for double-clicking your mouse tonight. You're listening to the Midnight Frightcast in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Midnight Frightcast episode number 38. I am one of your hosts, Josh. Sitting across the table from me, as always, is the Doctor of Filmonomics.
Filmonomics?
It's going to be a good one.
Yes, it is.
Greg, the movie guy.
I have a stud finder, and I'm pointing it at myself, and it's not working.
Registering at all.
I thought it was a taser.
No, I think it's working perfectly fine.
Thank you, Patrick. That's very nice.
Sitting to my
What's
right,
up?
as always, is the Doctor of Everything Else, Patrick.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
And because I haven't thought of a really clever nickname to the person to my left, it's Maddie.
Sup, sluts.
All right. We got, should I acknowledge the fact that she's called everybody sluts? Should we take a moment for that?
Just keep going.
That was brilliant.
Oh, I about shot beer out my nose. That was fantastic.
That was
Thank you for
awesome.
that.
All right. We got a full house tonight. So let's just kick it off with some news. Everybody but Greg's got it. Maddie, why don't you start with it?
Mine isn't anything huge, but apparently they are.
Neither's Greg.
She said, hey.
Apparently they are remaking Pet Sematary. I did not know that.
Yes.
But they just cast Zelda. They cast newcomer Alyssa Levine. They're kind of taking the character in the new direction, it looks like, because she's only 13.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which
that's
is
weird.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty much it.
She was the scariest part of that movie.
Oh, yeah.
She haunted me as a kid when I saw that movie. She haunted me for a long time. She was the scariest part of that movie.
Yeah, that was actually the only part of that movie I remembered for a while. I just had that scene of her in her bed in my head for a really long time.
Yeah,
and I was
yeah.
like, what movie is that?
Yeah.
And then I rewatched Pet Sematary and was like,
Yeah,
oh.
she was to Pet Cemetery with the woman in the bathtub was The Shining.
Yeah.
Ooh.
They also cast John Lithgow as Fred Gwynn's part. Which,
Really?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really cool.
That's an excellent choice, I
Yeah.
think.
So they're bringing in some really good people cast in that movie. So I know they've started filming already. So
Yeah, I
think
thought it said early, like April-ish, 2019,
they're
possibly.
they're into it. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Anything Stephen King, as long, I'm hoping it's good. I mean, there's some Stephen King crap out there.
Stinkers, yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, Greg, you didn't have anything, right?
I was not able to get anything for this time around, but I will come back with a vengeance next time.
I could give you one of mine.
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, it looks like, and Josh, this is probably for you. Looks like Leatherface might be finding a new home. That Legendary Entertainment and Legendary Pictures are in the mix to develop not only new Texas Chainsaw movies, but a television series as well.
Jesus.
They should just stop.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. There's no details at this time, but I'm curious what you think of it as the TCM as a TV series.
I don't see there. It's just there's nothing they can do on TV that they'd want to do for that kind of.
Well, if it's obviously cable.
If it's on cable, they
streaming,
can't
any
do
of those.
anything. I mean, they can't show.
It'd be like watching American Horror Story, which is graphic and gory, but it's not like
It's watered down.
Yeah.
it's not Texas
Like they
Chainsaw
can't,
Massacre.
yeah.
No, exactly. You've still got a restraint.
What if it's on a streaming service like Hulu or Netflix that they're allowed to do R-rated movies regardless?
If that's what it's on, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
If
mean.
it's a Netflix original, they could do anything they want to, and that might be legit.
I guess I meant
But-
streaming instead of cable. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that might be kind of interesting. Leatherface came out last year, and it was awful.
Oh, I forgot that movie existed.
It was awful. And they've kind of ran it into the ground. I know it's a name franchise, but at some point you got to let it go. You just got to let it go.
Yeah.
There's other options out there for franchises to continue. I'd like to see them take another crack at Nightmare on Elm Street because they can surely do better with that. Even Friday the 13th, they blew that remake. So they could do that better. But there's other options out there that they could, or, start cranking out some original shit because you know what? We deserve it. So,
Yeah.
Hollywood's afraid of original.
Is that your only news, Patrick, or you got another one?
No, I got another one.
Okay,
but,
cool.
but if you got something, go ahead.
I mean, it's cool. You can go.
All right. Well, if you're a fan of A Quiet Place.
Oh, well, you just took my news story.
Oh, did I? Well, you go right ahead and
No,
take
it's-
it.
it's
Then.
okay,
No.
it's okay, it's okay.
I really want you to announce.
I mean, I don't know what you're going to say.
Okay.
So I was just going to be like,
Oh my God!
Well, here's
Somebody
the thing.
announce it.
If you say
There's
it
a
and it's
sequel.
not the same.
Hey, there it is.
So John Krasinski is making a sequel to A Quiet Place. It was already announced, so that's not news. But they do have a date of May 15th, 2020 for release date. So that was really my only news and all I had to say about it. I am curious as to what they're going to do with it because John Krasinski is going to somehow be returning in some form. So I'm wondering if they'll also be bringing back the family that was in it. I know there's other families out there in that movie with the fires burning and everything. I'd like to see more of a prequel to A Quiet Place than them.
To get like
Do
the
a
full
sequel.
on how the I think you called it the sound apocalypse.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah.
How the sound apocalypse like occurred or
Yeah, I just think that's the only way they can really continue with this movie is if they make a prequel because
She's not going to have twins.
no,
900 more screaming kids.
if they're bringing back John Krasinski, it's the only way they can really do it is with a prequel.
unless
I
they
think.
go with flashbacks, but that would
Which
that
is
kind
true,
of
but
defeats
who
the
wants
purpose.
to watch that fucking movie?
No, I mean it's I don't know
So-
how you would do that.
Yeah,
or
I mean,
maybe he comes back because he morphs into one of those creatures after he's been eaten by them or
That'd be interesting.
annihilated by them. So it's like
A big creature with just John Krasinski's head.
Yes, exactly that.
Yeah.
John Krasinski
watch that.
wrote a whole
Backstory for it, yeah.
of these aliens. I guess is what he said. They're aliens.
Are they?
He
Okay.
said it's a whole backstory is like where they came from and why they're here. So there's a whole story before all this happened that they could really do something cool with.
So we're
if
gonna
they wanted to.
We're more than likely going to get a series out of this.
I hope they don't make more than 2.
Okay.
There's really not a reason to make another one. The Quiet
There
Place
really
I
isn't,
liked,
but I think it was just one of those things where a knee-jerk reaction. It made a butt ton of money. Let's throw
$325 million.
Yep, let's throw some more money at it and see if we can cash in on that cow again.
Sure.
I don't know, but he's got other movies lined up. At least one more movie lined up before Quiet Place 2 would be filmed anyway. So, yeah. Is that news?
That's news.
You didn't have anything to continue on with that story, Patrick?
No, that was it.
Well,
that
I'm
was
sorry I
the-
took your story.
No. That's why I had a couple. Was in case somebody took mine, and obviously one of
I
mine.
come
would've
with
taken
one
yours.
news story and one news story only.
Only.
That's the most homework I'll ever do.
Good for you.
Hey, let's talk about a trailer. So we watched a trailer just recently for a movie called The Toy Box, and Patrick loved it so much he watched it twice. So
I wanted to watch it again just because I had some questions about it. So
Well,
He,
what
just,
caught
he
your
wanted
eye?
to see Denise Richards again.
What caught your eye the first time, Patrick, that made you want to go back and watch it a second time?
because I wanted to see if what was affecting them had anything to do with the RV itself or if it was something else. If they're traveling in a haunted RV, or if somebody amongst them is the
Possession.
Maddie,
possession.
You
Yeah.
watched the trailer yesterday, right? Oh, you did? Okay. Is that the trailer you watched?
I didn't watch it at all. I just saw.
The trailer I watched yesterday it started off with a boy riding a bike with a weird skull with nails in it, and he goes into what looks like that RV, and then it kicks into all those clips.
Okay.
So there was another trailer that had a little bit more before they actually went traveling. So I wonder if that had anything to do with what's going on in that RV.
I would hope so. Why would you put something in the trailer that you wouldn't put in the movie?
People do that all the time.
I know they do.
I'm just thinking it's the trailer from Breaking Bad, and it was just lonely and needed some people to hang out with.
All that meth just turned evil or something in there.
It's the spirits of all the people who have died from the blue meth.
So, what are thoughts? I guess overall thoughts of that trailer.
I don't know what's happening in that trailer. We watched it twice, and I have no idea what the movie's about, except
Right.
they're out in the middle of the desert in a trailer and people are dying.
People are dying.
Yeah, I don't know why. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened.
It captured my intrigue just enough to make me want to watch it. I don't think I would go and see it in theaters.
It's going to drop VOD probably.
I would hope so. I don't know that I could spend more than a couple bucks to even see what that's about. But even then, it's a big if I even pull the trigger on that.
They got some names in it. Misha Barton's in it. And,
Yeah, that doesn't mean anything.
Denise Richards is in it.
Based on your standard of stars in horror movies, I'm almost a little more turned off for that reason.
What has Misha Barton been in before?
She's been in, I think she was on, there was a TV show she was on that was.
Okay. Denise Richards is pretty popular for B movies. I wouldn't say she's been in A-list movies.
No, you're right.
Because like one of the biggest ones she's popular for is probably Starship Troopers.
She was in that movie with Nev Campbell. Awesome.
Oh, with in the pool.
Yeah, and the thing in the
Wild
pool.
Things?
Wild Things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
But that's still not an A-list movie. I wouldn't think. I don't know.
it's Nev Campbell. I mean, she was kind of A-list for a little while, right?
I guess that depends on your definition of A-list.
She was A-list in the 90s.
There you go.
I mean, she was in Scream.
Yeah.
That's pretty A-list, I would think.
I thought this was going to be, when I just saw the title, I thought it was going to be the Toy Box Murders, that serial killer.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
that's kind of what I
Gotcha.
thought. So
Yeah.
when then the trailer rolls up, I was like, what?
The title's a little weird. The toy box and the whole thing is in the RV, and I didn't see one toy box, so maybe I missed it. But the title's a little
I wonder if the
Off-putting.
RV is the toy box for something bigger.
maybe.
For the foreshadowing.
I just see the RV as one big toy box. Yeah.
Yeah.
Misha Barton was famous for the OC.
Oh,
Also,
okay.
she was in
Yeah.
The Sixth Sense and Notting Hill.
She's been in
That's
a
it.
couple of things. Okay. So overall, the trailer, anybody really going to see that? Anybody interested?
Probably not.
Do we pick another?
It's a rental. It's
If it
it's a
comes up on
streaming.
Netflix, I'll catch
Yeah.
it there.
Do we pick another dud? Awesome. Cool.
I don't know that we necessarily picked a dud. I mean, it looks like it's probably got some pretty cool effects and kills and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
but like Maddie said, there's just not enough there to tell me what the story is to say what's
So
interesting about it.
Would you call that more of a teaser than a trailer?
Yeah, I guess
Probably.
I could see that.
It was pretty short too.
I don't know. We watched it twice. You prolonged the suffering.
Well, I apologize.
Cool. Well, then should we move on and talk about what we've been watching?
Let's kick it.
Let's do what we've been watching. Greg, what have you been watching?
Well, I have a gigantic, humongous, titanic list of movies that I have been watching, but I'm going to limit it to one.
Cool.
And it was a rediscovery. I watched a movie this week that came out a while back. I can't remember the year, so we're going to just say a while back because I don't want to exclaim how old I am. And it was an action movie that I had completely forgotten about.
Last Action Hero.
Negative.
Yeah.
Because this was really, really good. It was Gone in 60 Seconds.
I haven't seen that movie.
I haven't seen. You should watch it.
I have never seen any of those movies.
There's only one.
Isn't there? Like, I'm
thinking
thinking
Fast
Fast
and
and Furious. Yeah.
No, Gone in 60 Seconds was awesome. Just fantastic movie. Great movie all
Nick
around.
Cage?
Nicolas Cage in one of his better roles, I feel. Gone in 60 Seconds.
Cool. That was over in 60 seconds. All right. Patrick, what have you been watching?
Much like a lot of things in Greg's life. I
Eat a gigantic 37 dick.
think we're up to
Salt.
38 by now. Well, what I was going to mention is that Rachel and I went and saw Happy Time Murders, but I'm not even going to suggest that in any way, shape, or form now. Instead, I've been getting caught up on Castle Rock. That's a series that I peeped out a few weeks ago, but I was a couple episodes behind. And the episode that I watched, I mean, I want so much to binge watch this series, but Hulu is now doing their releases once a week. So you're not binge watching it, and then at the end, you're like, oh, I'm so sad that I can't watch more. So I kind of like what they're doing now. So the episode that I saw this week, and I'm still actually one behind, but it was an entire episode dedicated to Sissy Spacek's character. Mm-hmm. So it was her the entire hour, and she was absolutely amazing and proved that she is still in the upper echelon of actors and deserves every acclamade that she gets.
Have you finished Castle Rock? Did you finish it?
No, it's a series that they every week they release another episode.
Oh, aren't they up? Okay, I got you. So they're up to what, like five or six? Five? Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I want to catch up on that. I haven't started that yet. Are you done, Patrick?
Yeah, I'm
Sorry,
done.
I was just being rude.
Are you done, Patrick? God.
So on Netflix, this a new Netflix original just dropped the other day, last week. I guess we go today, called Ghoul. Has anybody seen it?
No, you mentioned
Or heard of
that.
it?
You mentioned that
Yeah,
earlier.
Said it.
was that?
I said you said it. And
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's only a 3-part series. There's only 3 episodes. They're each about 45 minutes. I'm only through the first one because I have just had no time to watch anymore. But really slow. Nothing like crazy action-wise has happened. It's dubbed, and it's dubbed really poorly. and it's really hard to understand what anybody is saying. So no subtitles, but is very, very poorly dubbed. So that's kind of a thing that's rough, but it's really interesting. I'll probably finish it just because it is only 3 episodes, so there's not too much to get into. But yeah, go on Netflix. Check it out if you can read lips. Yeah, that's it for me.
All right.
There you go.
Yeah, go ahead, Maddie. Yeah.
Sorry. Let's see. I've watched a couple Marvel movies. I know I'm really, really behind, but they're really hit or miss for me. So a lot of times I just don't care. But I watched Infinity Wars and No, is that the last one?
The last one released was actually Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Ant-Man and the Wasp was the last one.
Okay, the Avengers one?
The Infinity War.
Infinity War.
Okay, I watched Infinity Wars and I watched Doctor Strange, and yeah. I'm not a huge comic fan, so although like I did like Infinity Wars, I thought Thanos was fun. We have a lot of the same ideals.
I think I need to leave this podcast.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn into dust here shortly.
But yeah, I haven't watched anything exciting except my millions of years behind.
I think
popular
Josh
movies.
is a million years behind on that.
Yeah,
series
I'm
as well.
right there with you.
Oh, yeah.
I've tried multiple times, and I just cannot. I don't fucking care. I don't really care about anything Marvel, really. I've seen some, but when you watch them out of order, it's kind of hard to figure out what's going on. So, yeah.
Yeah, I will say I like Marvel more than DC because
for
I
Christ's
watched.
sake.
What was that? Sorry,
Justice League.
Justice
Oh
League.
my god, I've never thought about killing myself more than I was sitting there watching that movie, and I was like, how many ways can I just like sit here and choke myself?
You know, there's
This
an
is
issue when
awful.
Aquaman is the most interesting character.
Yeah,
Well, you cast Jason Momoa, and that's kind of a given.
I know, but still, DC needs to understand that.
DC needs to stop.
They're trying to catch up to Marvel, and they're trying to do it as fast as they possibly can, and they're screwing themselves by doing that.
Yeah,
But I think they also wanted to play off the darkness of Dark Knight series, and people don't want to see that with these other characters.
Well,
So
Ben Affleck might not even be a part of it anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Can you blame him?
well, he's in rehab.
He's in
right
rehab.
now, so,
Oh,
yeah.
wow, I'm an asshole.
But I know that they've been looking to recast him for a while anyway, though. He wrote a new Batman script, and they scrapped it and wanted to rewrite it and recast him. So, and I hope they do.
and I got to say, I don't think he was the worst Batman.
He was a far cry from the best Batman.
Right. I agree with that. But
Which is the best Batman to you? I'm just
Val
curious.
Kilmer. Michael Keaton.
Good answer. Good save.
Cool. So we have a topic for tonight.
I was waiting for him to say George Clooney.
No, Cameron Diaz. We have a topic for tonight, and Maddie came up with this topic, correct?
sure.
It wasn't me.
Yeah, it wasn't me. So, Maddie, you wanna explain what we're talking about tonight?
Tonight we're talking about what our favorite movies are that are based on true events, and I'm taking that with a huge grain of salt because I mean Hostel has inspired by true events at the beginning of it or something, so
That is true.
I think that's open to interpretation.
Well, there's like certain levels of based on true events because, I mean, there's actually true events, and then there's true events that it's like very loosely based, and then there's people that claim it to be true events but have never been verified.
Right.
So, everybody made a list, right?
Yes.
Everybody but myself. Did we all do 5?
I did 4.
I did more because I know that people are going to take people's.
Yeah. What about you, Greg?
I actually just added a 5th. I remembered one.
Okay, cool. Well, Patrick's got a shit ton, apparently.
No, I'm going to let other people go because I could possibly take theirs.
Well,
Okay.
Maddie, why don't you start?
Okay, my first one is Grim Love, which is the movie that was based on that gentleman over in Germany who put a ad out on the internet to kill and eat someone, and somebody responded to it and came over and was like, "Yeah, let's do this," and he was killed and eaten, and it was all videotaped, and that guy's in jail now. But yeah,
Is it really?
No, wait a minute.
Is it murder if you volunteer yourself?
that was the thing. I love this movie because I think it raises a lot of ethical and legal questions because he was originally tried and I think only sentenced to 8 years. But then I think they retried him and he is in jail for life now. He's also a vegetarian. Fun fact.
What?
Wow.
It's either murder or you assisted suicide.
Yeah.
I was going to say, that's very Kevorkian.
Yeah.
Well, and they had, I think, a couple people that came forward after and said, yeah, I went over to his house, I responded to the ad, and then said, you know what, I don't really want to get killed and eaten, and he said, okay, and just let him go. So he's not like, I think that's the interesting part about this movie, is there's no real bad guy, there's just this sick man, and an even sicker man that was like, yeah. They also...
who's the sicker man?
I don't know, the guy who got eaten. They also, okay, so he goes over to his house, he cuts this guy's junk off, sautés it, they sit there and eat it together, and the guy's like bleeding out. Oh, I love the looks on all your faces. So they're bleeding out, or the guy's bleeding out, and then he takes them to the back and chops him up and eats him. And the only reason he got caught is because he stuck another ad on the internet. Tried to put his hand in the cookie jar twice, and apparently that wasn't okay.
So before he was eaten alive, he ate his own dick?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm watching their responses. There are looks.
I mean, no, it's fine.
Nice.
I just...
Well, the thing about this guy is he's really, like, you can watch interviews with him, and he's so soft-spoken and polite, and I don't think he should be in jail. I really don't, because he's not a danger to anybody. Just get him off the internet.
He's just hungry.
Yeah, he just has a weird sexual fetish.
I hear Cheetos can crave your hunger.
Yeah.
Maybe some beef jerky.
Cheetos can't eat its own penis, Greg. So...
But there's multiple movies about this case. There's Diary of a Cannibal is really loosely based on it. There's an actual documentary called The Man Who Ate His Lover. There's a ton of movies out there about this one.
Interesting.
Yes.
So I have to confess, I did my homework like right before we started this podcast because I've had like minimal time to do really anything the last week or so. So I apologize for that. However, I did come across some that I have seen that I would like to tap into. So the first one that I have was Nightmare on Elm Street.
And what's the story behind Nightmare on Elm Street, Greg?
I'm glad you asked. Let me see if I can pull it up on my phone because I figured that would come up. So I came across a website here called cosmopolitan.com. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Cosmo, yeah. Love it.
Their little snippet here states, the iconic baddie Freddy Krueger kills teenagers via their dreams in Wes Craven's franchise-launching film. Craven told Vulture that the idea stemmed from the article he read in the Los Angeles Times about a family of Cambodian refugees with a young son who reported awful nightmares. He told his parents he was afraid that if he slept, the thing chasing him would get him, so he tried to stay awake for days at a time, said Craven. When he finally fell asleep, his parents thought this crisis was over. Then they heard screams in the middle of the night. By the time they got to him, he was dead. He died in the middle of a nightmare. Here was a youngster having a vision of a horror that everyone older was denying. That became the central line of Nightmare on Elm Street.
And I'm going to add to that, because that was on my list as well.
Haha.
Is that that was part of it. And as he was doing more research, there were actual reports of older Asian men, mostly Laotians, that were screaming out in their sleep and then dying. And it was actually, people were trying to figure out what it was, and they actually labeled it the Asian death syndrome.
Interesting.
That was just a little bit more that he went on to do just a little bit more research with that before he started writing the script.
It's always interesting to come across those because you hear like truth is stranger than fiction, but then you get into the horror side of it and you see something like this and you're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad that you had, when you read that you said, Craven said blah, 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 because in doing some of this research, we use the internet as our research. And of course, the internet is always right. There's no fictional stuff out there. So I would say anything that we say here, unless it's been verified,
right,
that everything we say can be taken with a grain of salt. So Nightmare on Elm Street, I'm going to go with Psycho.
Okay.
There's a guy that, and I may kill a couple of Josh's here.
No, you're good.
There was a guy by the name of Ed Gein. He was called the Butcher of Plainfield, and he killed 2 women and was found not only guilty but legally insane. And in his home, investigators found furniture and other appliances that were made of human skin and bones and stuff like that. And he not only admitted to killing these 2 women because they looked like his mother, but also for digging up graves and using the body parts for different things throughout the house, etc., etc. He created a skin that he could put on so he could walk around to be more like his mother.
And a nipple belt.
And a nipple belt. Yep, that was part of it.
One.
There was furniture made of bones. He had a nipple belt. It was pretty disgusting.
He also inspired Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, okay.
And there was another one, Silence of the Lambs.
That's on mine.
Yeah, the what's his name?
Buffalo Bill.
Buffalo Bill. Yeah, I wanted to say Billy the Kid, and I knew that was wrong. Different story altogether.
Completely different.
So yeah, this Ed Gein inspired actually a ton of movies. You know, these are just three that are really popular. That's my first one.
Cool. Yeah. Mine's not really. I just realized it's on the list, but it's not really a horror. It's more sci-fi. But whatever. I'll break the rule. I don't care. Fire in the Sky, 1993.
That could be argued as a horror film.
I think back in the 80s. I think this is when it happened. A guy named Travis. Oh no, 1975. So boy, was I fucking wrong. Travis Walton alleges that he was captured by aliens. Mm-hmm. And tested on, had a bunch of tests done on him, and then returned to Earth. And is basically Fire in the Sky is basically what happens to him after he's brought back and all the weird shit he goes through. But Fire in the Sky, I remember being like one of my favorite movies when I was a kid. I really liked that movie. So
no, I would list that as horror because I could see how it could really freak the shit out of somebody.
Yeah, there's some really good imagery in that movie too. So, yeah, Fire in the Sky. Well, it might be true.
And I'm on a coattail on that once Maddie goes because I've got something very similar.
Oh no, go ahead. If you're.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Greg Wang off of Fire in the Sky was a movie that I actually got my wife to watch. A movie called The Fourth Kind.
I just wrote that down because I just remembered it. I was like, oh yeah, Alien.
That's exactly that's the fifth one that I wrote down. They come out with a disclaimer, at least the one that we watched, came out with a disclaimer at the beginning that everything that we saw was based on true events. Mm-hmm. And I know that there was a big controversy between was it actually true or are they saying that just to heighten the suspense and the terror of what's going on. But I remember watching that movie and I was freaked the fuck out. Mm-hmm. What really got me was when they did the side-by-side of here's the actual movie and here's like real video footage of what's going on. And that was, I don't know what it was based off of, but like I said, it had the... But
I thought it was really cool because the when they did the side-by-sides, the real version was not even real because that was filmed by the production company as well.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So everything in that was not real.
No, it was based on supposedly real facts, but they didn't have anything filmed of her interviews or anything like that.
Okay.
They did the movie interviews side by side to the fake filmed, supposedly real interviews.
So it's almost like a biopic.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Every time I watch that movie, I always like make a mental note, like, oh, go look this up to see how much of this is actually true. It's never happened. In the second I get up, I'm like, oh, what was I doing? But
oh, yeah. No, that was one of them. I said, oh my God, I need to see these actual videos. And I looked it up right away and it's like, yeah, no, we filmed those. But I mean, they convinced me. They were,
it's still freaking terrifying.
Real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that was mine.
All
Return
right.
to you.
Okay. My next one was Hard Candy. I love that movie. And this is one that's really just kind of based off of a headline that the writer saw. Apparently over in Tokyo, there were some girls, they didn't really say how old, but they were chatting with men online and like promising sexual favors with young girls, and they would come to the designated meeting spot and they were mugging them. So not anything as bad as, why do we keep bringing up movies tonight where people are removing other people's junk? I'm really sorry, guys.
That's all right.
It may say more about you than
who was the male actor in that?
Patrick Wilson.
Was that Patrick Wilson?
Why I can't watch anything anymore without thinking pedophile. Like every time I see The Conjuring, I'm like, what are you doing with
Patrick
that
Wilson
child?
and Ellen Page.
Yeah, and Ellen Page was amazing in it. I mean,
so
and I know she was in her 20s when she did it, but she definitely passes as a young teenager at that point.
I think that's a breakout role for her.
Yeah.
That's a really good movie, especially having such a tiny cast.
Sure.
Just those two people having to carry the entire movie.
Yeah.
And just the back and forth between the two of them, I never felt comfortable once in that movie.
It's
yeah.
All
right.
Mix your own drinks, people.
Who's up?
You're up.
Oh, I'm
You're
up. Okay. The Hills Have Eyes.
Yeah.
There was a person by the name of Sawney Bean, and he was a head of a 48-member clan in Scotland during the 16th century that they executed and cannibalized or consumed supposedly over 1,000 people from the villages around the area. They had this cave that they had dedicated to hanging out and killing people and eating them. And then eventually, I mean, it's really interesting because since it was like what did I say? It was the 15th century, 16th century. Mm-hmm. Like the King of Scotland had to get involved with it to send out this group of people to find them and all this other stuff. And so it's been well documented on what actually happened with these people. So yeah, he took the idea of just this group of people out in the nomadic areas, and whenever somebody comes by, let's just take them and eat them.
Eat them.
Yep.
I guess if you're hungry.
My next one is 1982's The Entity, which you cannot find anymore. It's hard to find this movie. And between that movie and the Amityville Horror, it's like two of the movies that like I just have the hardest time watching. But The Entity has Barbara Hershey in it, and she plays a mother that is basically being tormented and sexually abused by an invisible demon. It's based off a case where two paranormal investigators worked at a place where they saw moving objects, and also the ghost was sexually abusing them. But The Entity, if you can find it, it's it's actually a really good movie.
I actually I saw it a while ago. And
it's really hard to find now. I can't find it anywhere anymore. So it's that's the thing. So I like that movie. The Entity.
I just had a flashback to when I worked at the haunted house and I got called a ghost slut.
Jesus.
I didn't even know what that means.
I didn't either, but it was my favorite.
I mean,
It's your favorite?
I can understand slut ghost,
Yeah.
but not ghost slut.
Is that a ghost that decided to become a slut after
It's got to be
passing through, or
yeah.
Apparently they exist because they were out raping people. My next one is The Exorcist. And I'm sure this just is kind of a blanket coverage to all possession movies. I'm sure they were all based on the same few stories. But The Exorcist in particular was apparently based on a 14-year-old boy named Roland Doe. And he started acting weird. And his family moved across the country. He was still being a little freak. So they got the Catholic Church involved. And yeah, apparently he was totally normal. But I think, as I said, I think that's a lot of possession movies.
Roland Doe. I like his name.
Roland.
Next on my list was 1982's Poltergeist. Just a quick snippet here from that cosmopolitan.com.
I think that you're finding your horror news at Cosmo.
Right? I'm trying to shut up. In Poltergeist, a family's home is invaded by ghosts that abduct one of their daughters. The film was inspired by unexplained events such as loud popping noises and moved objects that occurred in 1958 at the Herman's home in Seaford, New York. I think that kind of falls under the whole possession type thing. Again, the blanket coverage of that. I'm sure that happens more often than not. And this one just got picked up and made into a movie called Poltergeist.
And this is one that they also did have people come in and check it out and run all these tests and everything else. So there is documentation about not necessarily it actually happening, but them claiming that it happened.
Would you guys live in a haunted house?
Definitely.
I did.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Fuck no.
I'm going to go with The Exorcism of Emily Rose. There was a German woman by the name of Anneliese Michel. I don't know how to pronounce German. So she underwent exorcisms, rites, and stuff shortly before her death. And when they went back and did physical stuff, testing and everything else, they basically just found out she was depressed and epileptic.
How do you fuck up that much?
Well, because as she was going through her depression and everything else, she developed this weird aversion to religious articles. So like Bibles and crosses and stuff like that, she just couldn't be around. So between the seizures and the depression and then this weird aversion, they just determined that she was possessed with a demon and then did the exorcisms, and they felt that's what led up to her death.
Okay.
Documented. That's an awesome one.
That was an interesting one because like most of the movie was in a courtroom, which you don't really see unless it's an episode of Law and Order, you know?
Yeah, my next one is the Amityville Horror. I like these movies. Again, it goes right next to The Entity. It's the two movies that I have a really hard time kind of watching, but I really like them. But it's based off the Lutz family that moved into a house in the Amityville where a whole bunch of shit went down, and can't remember how many days they lived there.
28.
28? But yeah, it wasn't very long, and they got the fuck out because it was terrifying. It also spawned The Conjuring, really, and the Conjuring franchise because of the Warrens and their involvement in that case also. So the Warrens got to go cash their checks. So that's it.
There you go.
A little bit off topic, but still on the topic of Amityville. What do you think of the Ryan Reynolds version?
I can't.
I actually like that one.
Oh no, it's the original with can't think of his name.
James Brolin.
James Brolin. Yeah, is there's a lot of really terrifying moments in that movie that just did not get captured in the 2005.
Was it because you were expecting it, or they just
I don't think Ryan Reynolds really ran around with his shirt off enough. That's really what I wanted.
That was my complaint.
My wife would agree with you.
So what was the actual question, Patrick? Sorry.
I just asked what you thought of the Ryan Reynolds version.
It just didn't catch any of the atmosphere that the original version had. So I lost it. It lost it in that.
There is a documentary, and I don't know if it's still on Netflix or not, with the youngest son of the Lutz family.
Yeah.
But he is to this day convinced that house was possessed. It's a really cool documentary.
I've seen it. Yeah. I don't remember what it's called. Oh, it's called My Amityville Horror. That's what it's called.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's good.
I've got one more, and it's actually on my list of movies I want to watch. I haven't seen it yet, but it's based on my favorite serial killer, so I want to add it, mostly so I remember to watch it. But it's called Albert Fish, In Sin I Found Salvation, and Albert Fish was a sick asshole. He was absolutely insane. He was a cannibal. He was a sadomasochist. He was called the Vampire of Brooklyn he was active in the 1930s. And I think he was only convicted of killing 10 people, but he said the number was in the hundreds. But he would he was an older man, and he would lure children away from their parents and torture and eat them. And I think the worst part was his I think it was his first victim, but he wrote a letter to the mother and described how he ate this girl. Yeah.
Wow.
After he died, they found a bunch of nails shoved into his groin. He was just nuts. Absolutely nuts.
That's my Saturday night.
There you go, Josh. But I think anybody that made a movie about this guy should just be commended, because that's sick shit.
Wow.
So that's my last one. I'll leave it on a positive note, as always.
Everything is like eating your penis, nailing things into your penis.
All has to do with
I'm just not going to talk the rest of the night.
No, it's okay, man. You just, from now on, if you're going to come with a theme, stick with the theme.
Yikes. Tough to follow that one.
Sorry.
So, Patrick, you had actually taken one that I was going to mention was Silence of the Lambs.
Yes.
I'll jump over to my next one here, and actually my last one is the movie The Strangers. Writer-director Brian Bertino has said that the film was inspired by something that happened to him in childhood. As a kid, I lived in the house on the street in the middle of nowhere. One night while our parents were out, somebody knocked on the front door, and my little sister answered it, he said. At the door were some people asking for somebody that didn't live there. We later found out that these people were knocking on doors in the area, and if nobody was home, breaking into their houses. So a little bit of the opposite of what actually happened in The Strangers, but still, I think, fairly terrifying.
That's
sick shit that happens in real life.
Yeah. In another interview, he also said he was inspired by the Manson family killings, as well as the Ketty cabin murders. So there was some more influence of people just showing up and
hacking and slashing.
Yep.
Hooray! What a time to be alive.
I don't know. This is a really cheerful cast.
Right.
Guys.
Yeah, it really is.
Sorry.
So that was your last one?
That was the last one that I had.
I have a bunch listed, but I'm only going to do one more. The Sacrament. And this is based on Reverend Jim Jones in Jonestown. In the 1970s, Reverend Jim Jones had convinced his People's Temple to follow him to Guyana to set up a settlement there. And over the course of the time that he was there, of course, he was nuts, convinced that the government was coming for them and everything else. And he convinced his entire following to commit mass suicide. Mm-hmm. And this is where we get the term drinking the Kool-Aid, because they just dropped cyanide into the grape Kool-Aid. And it was actually Flavor Aid, not Kool-Aid. And Kool-Aid took a big hit because everybody was saying Kool-Aid and people stopped buying Kool-Aid. It was really bad. But to this day, largest mass suicide with over 900 victims.
Jeez.
So yeah, fun cult stuff. Do you have anything else, Josh?
Greg took my last one, which is The Strangers. Which is still, no, that's totally cool. It's one of my favorite movies, but it's all right. You can have it. Whatever. Fuck off.
No bitterness.
I'm gonna sneak in 1997's Funny Games, because I know it's loosely based off of a true story, but I don't know the actual story it's based off of. But I really like that movie. Naomi Watts and Tim Roth are in it. It's a really great movie. I just don't know the truth it is based off of. So I'll sneak that one in for shits and giggles.
All right.
Gits and shiggles.
Are we wrapped on the topic?
Yeah, I think.
There's many more out there if you're interested in it. Just do some research. I mean, because like I said, I probably still have about 8 left on my list.
I mean, do you want to run through them really quick, Patrick? Or no?
I'll just name them.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay.
I had The Town That Dreaded Sundown. It was in Texarkana, Texas. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, based on Henry Lee Lucas. The Possession, with the Dybbuk in the box. All the Conjuring series.
He said dick in a box.
I said Dybbuk in a box. Scream
Dick in a box.
was actually based on a serial killer. The Shining, people were claiming stuff at the Stanley Hotel was going on. And then Wolf Creek was based on the Backpack Killer. So, yeah.
Cool. I think we gotta jump into our topic, because we're running long tonight. Aren't we? Kind of? It seems like we're running long. Maybe not. Fuck me. Whatever. What do I know? Let's talk about our feature film that we watched. Again, suggested by Maddie, I believe. So I'm going to let her lead us into this.
I'm sure Greg's got, or you're Greg. I'm sorry.
Hi.
It's been a long week, guys. I'm sure Patrick has more about this than I do, because he does his homework a lot better than me.
It's not necessarily that I do homework. I just make a bunch of notes as I'm watching the movie. It takes me longer to watch the movies because I constantly hit pause to write down notes or type in notes and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily homework.
Do you have deets on this movie, Patrick?
I do have deets on the movie, that's for sure.
Let's do that first.
All right. Frankenstein's Army, released 2013, now streaming on Amazon Prime. Toward the end of World War II, Russian soldiers push into eastern Germany and stumble across a secret Nazi lab, one that has unearthed and begun experimenting with the journal of one Dr. Victor Frankenstein. The scientists have used the legendary Frankenstein's work to assemble an army of super soldiers stitched together from the body parts of their fallen comrades, a desperate Hitler's last ghastly ploy to escape defeat. IMDb rating, 5.3.
Oh, that's
Metascore,
higher than I thought. Yeah.
Metascore 49, Rotten Tomato critics 63%, Rotten Tomatoes audience 40%.
There it is.
That's still a little higher than expected.
For me, it's I don't know. For me, it's hitting the right numbers.
Yeah. And I say this is one of my favorite movies, and I will happily admit that it's a piece of garbage.
So, Maddie, you'd seen this movie before, but you led us down this deep, dark path anyway. Why?
I don't know. I absolutely love this movie. I own it. I watch it quite often. I think it's kind of like the movie Silent Hill, which is also bad. But, like, the creatures in it are so cool, and I think it totally makes up for the entire movie. But I also love the aesthetic of this movie. I don't know why. It looks like it was filmed with my phone. But I like movies like that. I like that choppy,
the grit,
weird,
and the grain.
I like that gritty kind of look to a movie. I think it's fun. I think this movie could have been improved upon massively, but overall, I just think it's so much fun.
I'll kind of jump on that. One of the notes that I wrote was I really liked the look of the film, the grays and the browns, and the fact that it was kind of shot. I don't want to call it found footage because
it's totally found footage.
Yeah,
I had a tough time calling it found footage even though that it probably was. It felt like it was more documentary style, and it was just a weird balance in between the two of them. Like very, very much shot like Houses October built. I felt like, but no, the look of the film was it gives it that realistic atmosphere, and it just gives it its skin almost, and that I think was the best thing that the film had going for it. Everything else.
Had I started watching this movie with the idea in mind that it wasn't going to take itself seriously, even though I felt it tried to take itself seriously, I would have enjoyed it far more than what I did. I knew it's going to have some pretty cool creatures in it because I'd seen some of the still images prior to watching it, and I was really looking forward to seeing those. And some of, for the most part, was not disappointed in any way, shape, or form on that. However, there were so many things that bothered me about this movie. And I was talking to Maddie prior to the podcast about this, that I walked away from this movie not hating it, but not loving it. And it's almost, to me, worth another look at just to see what I liked about it and what I didn't like about it. But I don't know if I can, Josh shaking his head, I don't know that I can put myself through it again.
To me, this movie is like a video game almost. Like, it almost runs through, and like, I feel like you're almost playing like some sort of like fucked up World War II video game.
That's kind of what I thought, kind of a mashup between like Resident Evil meets Call of Duty or something like that.
Yeah. It's kind of, as I said, it kind of has that Silent Hill kind of.
There was a first person shooter eons ago, and I'm dating myself. Castle Wolfenstein, I think is what it was called. But didn't that have like World War II with Nazis and all sorts of stuff like that? And that's one of the things I said was I really feel that this is a first person shooter game as I'm watching it, and I think it would relate really well or transfer really well into a video game if they wanted, because the creatures are so darn inventive in this. I just think they're very unique, and
I can see where their entire budget went.
Yeah. Josh,
I mean, had I started this movie about 40 minutes in, I would have thought it was maybe a little bit better. The first half of this movie is really fucking slow. Really slow. It was really hard to get through.
Really poorly acted,
and barely worth staying for the back half. Really, you might as well start the movie, like I said, 40 minutes in. Because that's where it at least kind of starts to pick up. I felt like it was like a choose your own adventure kind of movie as far as like how you want to die. Which sharp object would you like to be killed by?
The guy with the lobster claws.
Yeah.
Go.
I mean, all the creatures were kind of cool. I think all the effects went into, or all the money went into building those dumbass things. But I didn't like it. I didn't. I'll just be really honest with you. It was a rough watch for me, and I'd like to say it's because I was tired, but that's an excuse. It's not true. And I might have dozed actually at one point, and I woke up and I didn't know what the fuck was going on, which happens sometimes. And I just refused to go back and watch what I missed. So yeah, I mean, that's my experience in a nutshell with Frankenstein's army.
This movie is vastly improved with alcohol, just so everyone knows. I probably should have put that as a disclaimer.
I was going to say, maybe throw that out there before we watch it.
Okay, well, let's just make a rule. Next time I suggest a movie, just start drinking.
Yeah.
Just start drinking before.
It was filmed in different areas. Part of it was in the U.S., part of it was somewhere in Europe. And it kind of drives me crazy. I would have preferred that they were talking Russian and there were subtitles than talking, because it was supposed to be, like Greg, you had said, a documentary, because they're filming all this stuff that's going on in pursuit of finding Dr. Frankenstein. So here's all these Russians speaking English with a Russian accent. And I know that's so that we Americans who don't speak any other language can understand what's going on, but it still kind of bothers me that they weren't speaking Russian with subtitles or something like that, which would have been much more effective. And then it got to the point where there was the Russian speaking to the Germans, so they were both speaking English in their accents, and it was that bothers me. And not just this movie, but any movie like that.
It kind of took you out of it, because you'd almost expect this documentary style to have those subtitles.
Yeah.
And I think that would have enhanced the overall realisticness, and I say that very, very lightly, of the movie.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of Germans do speak English, and I think a lot of...
But once again, it starts off as a documentary, so why would they be speaking English at all?
Well, I didn't even... I didn't bother to look any of this up. Were any of the actors actually German or Russian, or were they all Americans?
It was a mixed crew.
Okay, because I was going to say there was a couple that I was like, your accent is shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
On the technical aspect, the camera, not knowing the history of cameras, the camera that they were using, would that have any type of sound recording
The audio
capability?
was dog shit in this movie.
Well, but what I'm saying is it had audio. I don't think cameras like that in 1940 had the capability to record sound.
I don't think so.
So they would have needed a sound person walking around with this guy. And I think documentary style stuff in wartime, they did use cameras and
audio
as well. So that, and I don't think anybody that's not involved with making films would understand that, but that did bother me because we do.
And you almost have to take yourself a little bit out of it. I mean, suspend disbelief.
No.
Or be like, it can be a douchebag.
Explain something to me really quick, because I might have missed it. Were they pissed at him? Did he betray them?
Yes.
What did he do?
They were going there not knowing they were looking for Frankenstein. They were just going in there. This guy knew where they were going. He was kind of getting them going in the right direction. And when the radio no longer worked, supposedly, it really did. And he was guiding them. And then they found out that all this stuff was working and everything else. And then they found out that he was actually a lieutenant and not a corporal or whatever the hell he was, and that he was in charge of them.
The ranking officer after the one guy died.
Yeah. So he did kind of betray them. Yes.
I kind of missed some of that. It didn't make the movie any better. I missed that.
I think it's easy to miss because you're not engaged with any of these characters. I didn't give a shit about any of them.
Yeah.
No, the one time I was really cheering for the Nazis, I'm like, come get these guys.
Yeah.
My wife walked into that movie when I was watching it and was like, you guys are fucking disgusting. There's a certain part in that movie where she was just like, this is gross.
Was that where you're picking at the brain?
It's where he's trading the two brains out.
Yeah.
And he's like, they will get along if we just put half his brain in this guy's body and half this brain in this guy's body, and everybody will get along now.
Yeah.
Didn't make any fucking sense.
That's why I said I made a note.
Nuts.
I made a note that the gore was more silly than it was effective sometimes. You know, how long can they drag the one guy around with his entrails and then it's just a camera following his intestines going down the hallway or whatever it was.
And then why were they all, when that, spoiler, this was made back in what,
2013.
Okay, we're good. When that Victor Frankenstein, he got shot at the end, why was that guy pissed?
They wanted him because Hitler needed him to create an army for, not Hitler, Stalin wanted Victor Frankenstein to create an army for him. So he wanted that guy to be alive.
Okay.
What I couldn't understand is why he cut off his head.
Yeah. That was weird.
But I think it revolved to the end that I don't know, because there was the picture of Stalin standing next to the young guy that took the head. And I didn't
take this movie as seriously as y'all apparently did. I just kind of was like, sweet demon Nazis running around. This is awesome.
We broke this movie down too much, apparently.
I guess I just took it for surface value.
Did you guys like the Blair Witch moment where the guy's talking directly into the camera?
I must have missed that one too.
And
I'm trying to remember where that part was.
So many good
it's after it's after they threw him down the chute and he was on his own.
Oh yeah.
And he just grabs the camera, he starts talking into it, and that's the first thing I thought of was
Blair Witch.
Blair Witch, where she's apologizing.
I got a really, really big Rob Zombie feel from this movie. I don't know if anybody else kind of felt like that. I felt like this was very, very House of a Thousand Corpses, especially when they got down into we'll call it the factory part where they're walking through with the camera and all the things are like turning and like, oh, you shouldn't be down here. I'm going to come after you, but not very quickly and all that. I don't know. I got a very good, a very big zombie vibe out of that Rob Zombie vibe.
Okay. So the caretaker of the church. Okay. So they go into the church and they find those people. It's the caretaker. They shot him in the leg and then eventually cut off his finger.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So when we get to the later part of the show, his finger's not missing.
He sewed it back on.
There's no scars. Are you sure?
How could you
no-
see
no
that clearly
stitches.
enough?
I thought
Budgetary reasons.
Because I was looking for it. I was looking for it. He was limping around like he'd been shot. Yeah,
I
got
thought I
but-
caught some stitches on his fingers
Oh,
because I remember
maybe
seeing him
there's-
and I thought, oh, okay, he came back. That makes sense. It's
Yeah.
him. And oh, hey, look at the fingers.
Okay,
of
maybe
stitches.
there
So
was stitches.
They
I
couldn't
just-
afford
I
that
just
makeup
didn't see it.
effect. They put it all into the Frankenstein zombie guy, monster guys.
Frankenstein's army.
Whatever. They couldn't afford those stitches. Has anybody else got any comments on this movie? Or can we rate this turd? Sorry, can we rate this movie? Sorry. I'm so sorry.
There's other things I just want to mention.
Then let's go,
Go for
Patrick.
it. Yeah,
let's
we
do
do.
it.
The teddy bear robot.
Yes.
Okay, and then he goes, "What? Did you see that one?"
Probably not.
It's the woman's head stuck on this teddy bear.
Oh, that was great.
Okay, and that made me laugh out loud. But if you looked at the trailer, it was listed as or not the trailer. You look at the credits at the end. It was listed as something robot and Frankenstein's mom. It was like a slash, so that was his own mother that he had converted into a teddy bear.
But you have to read the credits to know that.
Yeah.
See, and that's why I don't think they took this movie that seriously.
And that's why I think at the end I'm going, I think I needed to approach this movie with a different frame of mind.
Sure.
Yeah, I honestly think it's fun. I think maybe in the beginning they were trying, but then I think they kind of Freddy versus Jason it and were like, fuck it, let's do it.
Let's have some fun.
Yeah, who cares?
So Dimitri was stuffed down the chute. He had his Blair Witch moment. Okay. And then he's walking around, he's looking at things, and at one point he goes walking through a room and there's a very obvious sound of a woman having sex.
Yeah, I heard that. That's the one thing I did catch.
So I thought that the next thing I was going to see, he was going to walk into a room where there was like some zombified something, but it never went back to it ever. I was going, why was that even thrown in there other than, like for us to go, oh, I'm going to be interested for the next 10 minutes trying to see where the sex going to happen.
Right.
But that was really, really bizarre. They wanted that gritty look of the found footage at the very beginning because they were doing that choppy stuff with the lines and the grit and everything else. And then after 5 minutes, that all went away. And then it was much clearer stuff. And that's what took me out of that feeling of it was a documentary or anything like that. So my biggest question after all this crap that we talked about, how would you feel if this movie was done as a real movie and not found, I don't want to say real movie because then I'm
Cinematically instead of
found footage.
I think we run into I'm trying to remember what the name of the movie is. House is October Build. Mm-hmm. I think you run into the same issue where you're not going to get the same effect. You almost have to go into this with a found footage point of view because you're not going to get the shots where the monsters are like right on top of the camera. And however many times that cameraman survived any sort of those encounters, you're not going to get that. You're going to get the third person view of, I see the monster attacking the person, but I'm not really getting anything from it because it's not like it's coming right at me. Mm-hmm. And I think that it helps it. Again, I use help very lightly, but I don't know that you would get the same effect from this movie had it been shot cinematically. No.
I think if it was shot cinematically, obviously the story would be different because you'd have to care about the characters that were coming into it.
Right.
Full knowing here's a group of Russian military men coming in specifically for that reason of finding Dr. Frankenstein and then building the tension of being chased by these creatures instead of them just popping out and stuff like that. I mean, it would have been a completely different story. But for me, I think it would have been more effective than what this was. Once again, jumping back to maybe I didn't prepare myself for what this movie was ahead of time.
Sure.
I don't know. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think it would take away I don't know. I feel like this movie could have been done better, obviously. And, but I don't know. There was something about the kind of found footage that kind of made it what it was.
Right.
And as I said, I think it would kind of take away from that like video game feel.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think Greg has a point. Greg this time, but I think he's got a point where you have those monsters coming at the camera, and I think that it's not really scary, but I think it creates an effect.
Yeah, I think it's I think it was incredibly creative that they were doing something very unique, and I almost feel like it's one of those types of movies that if I had filmed this, it's a movie I would have been very proud of, but then sat back and wondered why other people didn't like it.
Yeah.
I know that sounds kind of weird, but
I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, you put all that energy and that creativity and everything into that, and you sit back and people are sitting here around a table and saying, "Oh my God, this is a giant turd in a bucket."
Yeah. Now, did you guys happen to catch the trailers for those?
I couldn't find them.
It's on YouTube. So if you just look for what did I say? It was the worst case scenario trailers. It's what they were working on prior to this movie, and those crashed and burned, and this is what came out of it.
Okay. Have these guys made anything else beyond this movie? Does anybody knows of?
I couldn't tell you.
No idea.
Don't know.
I wish I could have seen, I don't know, an interview with this guy to see the spirit in which this movie was made, and I think it would have made a huge difference on how it's perceived, because I thought it was a fun movie. Yeah. Maybe he was trying to make a really serious movie and I'm an asshole, but I think that would have made a huge difference. Is he trying to be hey, let's just have some fun with this, or is he trying to like this super serious Nazi movie?
And his background was music videos.
Okay. I could see this as a Cradle of Filth music video or something.
So let's rate it.
What are the
scare factor?
2.
Yeah, it's not scary.
Goose egg.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I would say 1 or 2. And then the second rating is gore factor.
6.
I give it a 7.5, just because you actually get to see him, the one scene, you see him peel the brains apart. And you get to see him cut the heads open. And I had to turn away a couple times just because it was a little much for me, but I'd say 7.5.
Would it have gotten an 8 if he ate his own penis?
If he had some Frankenstein peni?
I'm just curious. Sorry. Maddie.
It's not very high on the gore scale for me. Only a 4.
See, for me, it's pretty low as well, because I felt a lot of the gore was just silly as opposed to realistic. So I would give it a 4.
So you're rating it based on its look versus how much is in the movie?
Yeah. I think it's a combination of both for me.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
What else? What's the overall?
And then the overall.
A 2.
And that means you'd recommend it to people. Great.
Yes.
I've already said this is one of my favorite movies. I'll give it a 7 or an 8.
I give it a 4.
I'm going to give it a 5 because I love the character or the creatures in this thing. It was all steampunk and everything else. And I went to their website and they had all the original drawings for it. And the mosquito robot was one of my favorites. I just thought it was super, super creative, but I think it deserves to be a video game.
You guys are going to force me to rewatch this dumbass movie.
Just fast forward through the first half an hour.
Yeah. Just skip to the church scene and then go from there.
Cool, I'll do that. Maybe I'll stay awake this time. I missed a lot, apparently. You guys were talking about shit. I was like, I didn't even see that part. So, cool.
Your brain just shut off.
Let's we do plugs?
We can plug.
Greg, start off the plugs.
My name is Greg the Movie Guy, and I'm the best movie reviewer that you have never heard of. I write movie reviews with a positive spin over at gregthemovieguy.com. Most recently, I dropped a movie that was a little older than I wanted it to be. That was Shrek. It makes me cry that movie is almost 19 years old, but it is. So jump on over if you're looking for some good quality movie reviews to gregthemovieguy.com.
Hey, you should go check out the Prairie Lights Film Festival. I know I'm going to. October 12th, 13th, and 14th in Grand Island, Nebraska at the historic Grand Theater. Pretty good weekend. Super cheap weekend. Tons of films showing. Lots of discounts and the free popcorn and the soda. It's a really good time. I've gone there the last few years. Greg's been there. Patrick's been there. Maddie, have you ever gone? Yeah, you should. It's a good time. So, October 12th, 13th, 14th. Check it out, PrairieLightsFilmFest.com. I think they're on Facebook also. And that's it for that plug. Maddie, you got a plug?
Yeah, I have one for Lincoln, Nebraska. Use your fucking blinkers, people. I live across town from this basement that I'm in, and not a single one of you motherfuckers used your blinker the entire time I was coming over here.
I would like to loop Omaha into this same diatribe.
Omaha, Nebraska,
Omaha
you
bad.
Motherfuckers. Put your dick beaters on your steering wheel and use your fucking blinker.
I was actually, funny you should bring that up. I was talking to my mom while I was driving home from work the other day, and I was having this same rant with her. She lives out in Southern California, and she thinks that the Southern Californians drive better than Nebraskans. And I wholeheartedly agree.
Did you tell her to put her dick blinker on her?
That did not come up. No.
Because that would be my favorite thing ever. But Maddie,
it's still not as bad as Florida.
No, yeah, Florida's are.
Well, those people are all like an inch away from death. They don't care.
Maddie, do you also want to tell us about Screambox?
Oh, yeah. You guys, Screambox is amazing. They use their blinker. If you want, if you want all the horror you can handle, go over there. It's $4 a month. That is nothing. I know you guys have it. They add stuff all the time, and they're just fun to work with. We love them.
And you can get your first week free.
First week, absolutely free. Halloween's coming up, guys. Get
Or
on
you
it.
buy a year for $35.
Yeah.
Yep.
Super cheap.
Yeah.
Tons of stuff.
That's 5 cups of coffee right there. If that's how much coffee costs. How much does coffee cost?
It's
$5?
expensive.
Okay, that's 4 cups of coffee then.
Yeah. 4 cups of coffee.
Screambox.com. Check them out.
Yes.
Is that it?
No, help us out. Make sure that you subscribe. Head on over to iTunes and rate and review us. You can also find us at Google Play, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, and many more. Send us some love. You can find the Frightcast on Twitter at @mfrightcast. Send us some messages. Let us know what you're thinking. Give us some ideas on what we can review, topics that we can discuss. Share, post on your walls, and tell your friends. You can also check us out on our website at midnightfrightfilms.com.
Cool. Then for the Doctor of Filmonomics, Patrick over here, and Maddie, thanks for hanging out on the Midnight Frightcast. Till next time.
Don't be thick. Flick your stick.
Bye, sluts.
I love it.